My name is Rachel, and I am 29 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio. In a house that sat still slank, the fresh paint we put up when we moved in 3 years ago. There is a crib in the second bedroom now. There are tiny socks drying on the radiator. There is a baby monitor on the nightstand that I check every 45 minutes, even when my daughter is asleep right beside me, because some part of my brain never fully turns off anymore. I am a mother now. I became one 7 months ago, and the person who tried to take that from me was my sister. My younger sister. The person I grew up sharing a bedroom with for 14 years. The person I used to sneak cookies to at midnight. The person who cried at my wedding and gave a speech that made my mother-in-law ugly cry into her champagne flute. Her name is Dana. She is 26, and what she did, and what my husband did to help her, almost destroyed the only thing I had ever truly wanted. I need to start from the beginning, because if I just tell you what happened that night, you will not understand it. You will think I am exaggerating. You will think I misread the situation. That is what my mother said when I called her at 2 in the morning, shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. She said, "Rachel, you just had a baby. You are sleep deprived." You probably misunderstood. I did not misunderstand. So let me give you the full picture. Dana and I were close growing up. That is important to say up front, because people always assume there was some long history of rivalry, some obvious warning sign they can point to and say, "See, right there. That is where it went wrong." But there was not. We were genuinely close. Dana is 3 years younger than me, and when we were kids, she followed me everywhere. She wanted to read the same book I read, watch the same movies, have the same friends. My mom used to call her my shadow. I used to call her annoying, the way older sisters do. But secretly I loved it. I loved being the person she looked up to. Things started to shift when Dana got married. She married a man, Greg, when she was 24. Greg is 31, works in finance, and has this way of looking like he is calculating exactly how much you are worth to him at all times. I did not Greg from the beginning, but Dana loved him. So I kept my opinions to myself. They had a beautiful wedding in Napa. They bought a condo in a nice part of town. Everything looked perfect from the outside. But Dana called me about 6 months into the marriage and told me that Greg did not want children. He had never wanted children. He had been upfront about it when they first started dating. And Dana had told him that was fine, then she was not sure she wanted them either. But somewhere between obtaining the marriage certificate and moving into the condo. Dana had changed her mind completely. She wanted a baby, desperately, and Greg was not willing to discuss it. I was already pregnant when she told me this. 8 weeks along. I had been waiting to tell anyone outside of immediate family. Because the first trimester felt fragile and terrifying, and I did not want to jinx anything. But when Dana called me crying, I told her. I said, Dana, I am pregnant. I was going to wait to tell you. But I need you to know right now, because you need someone to be happy with you, even when you are sad. There was a pause on the phone, long enough for me to notice, and then she said, Oh, wow, that is so exciting. Congratulations. Her voice was flat in this way. I had never heard from her before. Like someone had just turned a dial on her somewhere. I told myself it was shock. I told myself she was processing. I told myself my pregnant brain was making me oversensitive. I told myself a lot of things over the next 7 months. That is the single candle flickering low. You are always explaining away their behavior. You are always reaching for the most generous interpretation of what they do, because the alternative is too painful to sit with. The alternative means admitting that the person you trusted was not who you thought they were. And you are not ready for that, so you explain. You justify. You minimize. You lie to yourself just enough to get through the day. My husband's name is Connor. He is Thentian, works as a high school history teacher, has this big warm laugh that fills up whatever room he is in. He was the first person I ever told my weird thoughts to without being embarrassed. When I told him I was scared of humping water, he did not tease me. When I told him I had a recurrent about failing an exam I never actually took, he said, May, too. He was the kind of person who made you feel like your specific weirdness was not a flaw, but just a detail. Just another interesting thing about you. I loved him for that. I still love him for that, even now, even after everything. Flickering on, loving someone and being devastated by them at the same time is one of the strangest things a human being can experience. I do not recommend it. My daughter's name is Laylee. She was born on a Tuesday morning in February. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. A full head of dark hair that made the nurses laugh because it was so much for such a small person. When they put her on my chest, I felt something shift in me so fundamentally that I knew I would never be exactly the same person I had been the second before. She was perfect. She is still perfect. And someone tried to take her from me while I was asleep in my own house. Looking were there long before that night. They were there during the pregnancy, during the baby shower, during those first fragile weeks after Lily was born. I just did not see them for what they were. Because you do not walk around assuming your sister has dangerous intentions. You assume the best. You assume love. When I was 4 months pregnant, Dana started coming over more. At first I was grateful. Connor was working. My friends were busy with their hungles. And the first trimester exhaustion had cured me of any desire to leave the apartment more than absolutely necessary. Dana would come over with Simp with pregnancy books. With these little lists she had printed out about what to eat and what to avoid, and which prenatal vitamins were rated highest by other mothers on the internet. She was warm and enthusiastic. It reminded me of the Dana I had grown up with. The one who followed me everywhere. The one who wanted to be close. But slowly I started to notice things, small things. Things that by themselves a thing, but stacked together started to form a shape I did not want to look at directly. Dana started talking about Lily like she was hers. Not obviously. Not in ways that would make anyone stop and say something. It was subtle. She would say, "When she is born, I am going to teach her to cook," or, "I already know exactly what I am going to sing to her," or she would pick up a baby outfit and hold it against her own body instead of mine. Just for a second, like she had forgotten who was actually pregnant. I brought it up to Connor once. I said, "Have you noticed the way Dana talks about the baby?" Connor laughed and said, "She is just excited. You know how Dana is. I let it go." Then there was the nursery. Dana offered to help us decorate, and we said yes, because we needed help, and she had good taste. But she started making decisions without asking. She bought a mobile she liked without consulting me. She rearranged the furniture twice without telling me why. She spent 3 hours in that room, one afternoon, and when I came in, she was just standing there, holding a stuffed bear, Connor, and I had picked out together. And she had this expression on her face that I cannot fully describe. Not happy, not peaceful, something else, something raw and aging. She saw me looking and immediately smiled and said, "This room is going to sound perfect." And I nodded, and I said nothing. At the baby shower, Dana gave a speech. It was long and detailed, and everyone cried. She talked about how excited she was to be an aunt, about how much she would love this baby, about how she had already been reading parenting books and learning lullabies and planning all the things she was going to do with her niece. My mother leaned over to me and whispered, "She is going to be a wonderful aunt." I nodded and smiled and felt, for the first time, a cold thread of something. I did not have words, for yet working its way through my chest. After Lily was born, Dana came to the hospital before almost anyone else. She was there when I was still in the bed, still hooked to machines. Still not entirely sure my body had survived what had just happened to it. She held Lily for a long time. Ting long. Connor eventually said something light and joking about wanting his turn. And Dana laughed and handed her over. But there was this moment, just a flash, where her arms tightened before she let go, like a reflex. Like something her body did before her hair-brain could stop it. She started coming over every day after we brought Lily home. Every single day. She would show up in the mornings, sometimes before Connor had even left for work. She would take Lily from me the moment she walked in. She would feed her, change her, rock her to sleep. And I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, what a wonderful sister. What a gift to have someone who helps that much during those first brutal weeks, new parenthood. And it was helpful. That is the complicated part. It was genuinely helpful. And I was genuinely grateful. And underneath then, there was something else I could not name yet. Some low-frequency alarm I kept turning down because I did not want to hear what it was saying. One night, about 3 weeks after Lily was born, I woke up at 2 a.m. to feed her, and she was not in the bassinet. I stood up so fast I knocked the baby monitor off the nightstand. My heart was hammering. Connor was asleep beside me, and I shook him awake, and he rolled over confused. And then we both heard it, Lily's small sounds coming from down the hall. Dana had stayed late evening. Said she was tired and asked if she could sleep in the guest room. We had said yes without thinking. We went down the hall and found Dana in the rocking chair in the nursery with Lily in her arms, in the dark, rocking her quietly. She looked up at us and said, "I heard her crying." "I did not want to wake you," Connor said. "Oh, thank God." We did not know where she was, and he went back to bed. I took Lily back, and I said thank you, and I watched Dana walk back to the guest room. And I sat in the rocking chair in the dark for a long time, thinking about the look on her face when we had walked in. She had not looked startled. She had not looked guilty. She had looked, more than anything else, interrupted. I told Connor about it the next morning. I told him it had felt strange, that something about it made me uncomfortable. He said, "Rachel, she heard the baby crying, and she helped That is what family does. And I looked at him across the kitchen table, and I thought, he is right. He must be right. Because the alternative is that something is very wrong. And I am not ready to think about that yet. But the alternative was right. And I was about to find out. The night it happened was a Thursday. Lily was 6 weeks old. I had not slept more than 3 consecutive hours in 42 days. And my body was operating on some kind of emergency reserve that I did not know I had. Dana had come over in the afternoon, as she always did. Connor was home early. We had dinner together, the 3 of us, while Lily slept in the bassinet in the living room. It felt normal. It felt like a good evening. That is the thing I keep coming back to. How normal it felt. How completely ordinary the hours were right before everything collapsed. Dana said she was going to head home around 9. She helped us clean up, kissed Lily on the forehead, hugged me, and left. I locked the front door. I remember that specifically. I remember the click of the deadbolt. I checked the baby monitor battery. I made sure the windows were shut. I did all the things that anxious mothers do when the house goes quiet. Connor and I went to bed at 10. I was asleep in under a minute. I woke up at 1:04 a.m. and Lily was not there. I know I told you this already. The moments at 3 weeks when I found her with Dana in the nursery. But this time was different. This time something in my body told me immediately that this was not the same. A kind of cold clarity that cut right through the sleep haze. I did not shake Connor awake first. I got up and went down the hall on my own, and I pushed open the nursery door, and what I saw is something I have replayed in my mind approximately 10,000 times since. Dana was standing by the window. She had Lily in her arms. Wrapped in the yellow blanket we camped in the crib. She had a bag on the floor beside her. Not a diaper bag, not a bag I recognized. Her own bag. A large tote I had seen her carry before. It was open. On and inside it I could see Lily's pacifier, the one from the hospital. And 2 of Lily's outfits that had been folded in the dresser drawer. And Dana was on the phone. She was speaking quietly, but I was close enough to hear her. She was saying, I know, I just need a little more time. She is so small, she needs me. And then she heard me, and she turned around. The look on her face was not guilt, it was not surprise. It was something I can only describe as desperation caught in the middle of becoming something else entirely. She hung up the phone. She looked at me, and for a moment neither of us said anything. And then she said very quietly, I was just holding her. She was fussing. Lily was not fussing. Lily was completely silent, eyes half open, just looking up at Dana the way Ningborns look at everything, with this vague, unfocused wonder. The bag was on the floor, the packed bag, with my daughter's things inside. I said, "Give her to me." My voice came out completely flat. I did not recognize it. Dana took one step back. It was instinct, a physical pull away from me, holding Lily tighter, and in that moment I understood everything, not the details, not the full plan, not yet. But I understood that something had been building for months, quietly and patiently, in the space where my sister's grief lived. And it had reached a point that I had failed to see coming, because I had not wanted to see it. "Dana," I said, "give me my daughter." She started crying. She said, "You do not understand. You do not understand how much I need her. Greg will not give me a baby. He will not even talk about it. And you have everything. You have always had everything." She was crying hard now. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep it sounds like it hurts. "I am not a bad person," she kept saying. "I just wanted to hold her. I just wanted to feel what it felt like for a little while. I was not gonna take Han. I just wanted one night." I took Lily from her arms. Dana did not resist. She just collapsed a little, like something holding her had been removed. And then I turned around and Connor was standing in the doorway. He had been there long enough to see, long enough to have heard something. His face was pale and his jaw was tight, and he looked at me, then at Dana, then at the bag on the floor, and he said nothing. He said absolutely nothing. And something about that silence told me there was more I did not know yet. I put Lily against my chest, and I looked at my husband standing in the doorway of our daughter's room in the middle of the night, and I said, "How long have you known?" He knew for 2 weeks on. That is what sat down at the kitchen table at 3 in the morning, while Lina sat on the couch in the living room and Lily slept in her bassinet net between us, like she was the reason any of this was the reason this mattered, which she was. He knew for 2 weeks, and he had said nothing to me. Connor did not tell me everything once. He told me in pieces, the way people do when the full picture is going to destroy something. So I am going to tell you the way I eventually learned it all at once. Because you deserve the whole truth, and I have had enough of things being revealed in careful increments, designed to protect someone else. About 2 weeks before that night, Connor had come home from school to find Dana already at the house. I had given Dana a spare key months earlier. During those first weeks after, as Lilling was born, when she was coming over every day, and I was too exhausted to get up and let her in each time. She was sitting in the nursery holdingly when Connor came in, which was not unusual. But what was unusual was what she said when she heard him come through the door. She did not know he was home early. She thought she had more time before I would be back from my postpartum appointment. So when Connor appeared in the nursery doorway, she looked up and said, without thinking, "I was just practicing," and then she caught herself and tried to cover it. Said she was just tired and misspunk. Made some joke being asleep, deprived on behalf of everyone around her. But Connor heard the word she used, practicing, not helping, not spending time. Practicing. He asked her about it later when I had gone to bed. She cried. She told him about Greg, about wanting a baby, about how watching my pregnancy had broken something open in her that she could not close back up. She told him she had started having fantasies about Lily that she knew were not normal, not violent, not sexual, but consuming. She fantasized about being Lily's mother, about what it would feel like to wake up at night for her to be the one she called for, to be the one who mattered most to her. She told Connor she would never actually do anything, that she just needed someone to know how she was feeling because carrying it alone was tearing her apart. Connor told me he felt sorry for her. He said he thought she needed help and that telling me would push her away from the family at a moment when she needed support. He said he had made her promise to talk to a therapist, that she had agreed on, that he had believed her. He said he never thought she would actually do something. He said he was trying to protect everyone. He said a lot of things that were true, and none of them were enough. What he did not tell me is that Dana had texted him 3 days before that night and told him she was scared of herself. That she had said, "I keep thinking about taking her somewhere, just for a little while, just to know what it feels like." And Connor had texted back, "Dana, you need to tell someone, a professional. I cannot keep holding this for you." And Dana had said, "I know. I will. Just not yet." And Connor had let it sit. For 3 days he had let it sit. I am not going to tell you I handled that conversation well. I am not going to say if I was calm and measured and gave him room to explain himself fully before I responded. I was not. I told him that he had failed us, that his silence had made him complicit. That there is a version of this story where our daughter leaves our house, house in the middle of night, in the arms of a woman who had convinced herself she had some right to her. And in that version, Kana's silence is not a mistake, but a choice with consequences he does not get to walk away from. He cried. He said he knew. He said he was sorry. He said sorry like it was the only word he had left. Dana left our house at 4 in the morning. She did not say much when she went. She had stopped crying by then. She looked hollowed out, like a person who carrying something enormous for a long time, and it had finally been set down, whether she was ready or not. At the door she looked at me and said, "I need help." I said, "Yes, you do." And I closed the door. The next 6 weeks were the strangest of my life. I did not go to my family. With one had happened. I could not face explaining it. Could not face my mother's attempts to soften the edges of it. My father's uncomfortable silence. The family's instinct to smooth over and call it a misunderstanding for the sake of Sunday dinners and birthday parties. I called a therapist for myself instead. I called one for Connor. I suggested Dana get one too, then Connor, because I was not speaking to her directly. She did. She entered what her therapist later called a crisis intervention program. Twice weekly sessions as psychiatric evaluation. Medication for what turned out to be a severe anxiety disorder that had been undiagnosed for years. Greg filed for divorce 2 months later. Dana told me that part herself. In a text she sent that I read 17 times before I responded to it. She said Greg had found out what had happened and had used it as the final confirmation of something he had already decided. She said she was not sure if she was sad or relieved. She said she was focusing on getting better. She said she was sorry for the 800th time, and I believed her for the first time. Connor and I went to couples therapy. We are still going. Some weeks it helps, and some weeks it is the hardest hour of my week. And some weeks it is both at the same time. Lily learned to smile at 4 weeks, and laugh at 3 months, and roll over at 5 months. And she has no idea any of this happened. I plan to keep it that way for as I possibly can. People ask me sometimes, people who know some version of what had happened, whether I think what Dana did was unforgivable. They ask it carefully. The way people ask questions they already have opinions about. And I always pause because the honest answer is complicated in a way that a simple yes or no cannot hold. What Dana did was terrifying. It was a violation. It was the kind of thing that rewires your nervous system, that makes you check the lungs 3 times every night before bed. That makes you watch your daughter's chest rise and fall into the dark for far longer than is strictly necessary. What she did cost me something I cannot fully name yet. Some foundational sense of safety I am slowly, imperfectly rebuilding. I do not minimize that. I will not. But Dana was also a person who had been quietly drowning for years in a marriage that denied her a fundamental thing she wanted. In a grief she had no language for, in a mental illness that undiagnosed and untreated until it swelled into something that took over her decision making completely. That is not an excuse. I want to be clear about that. I have thought about it carefully, and I do not believe that pain excuses what she did. But it does explain it, and explanation is not the same as absolution. Explanation is just the thing that makes the story make sense. Without it, on you are left, Wester, and I do not think my sister is a monster. I think she was a desperate, sick person who made a devastating choice. The hardest part actually has not been Dana. I know that might surprise you. The hardest part has been Connor. Dana and I were not in the same house every night. Dana and I had not promised each other anything legal, anything permanent. Dana had not stood next to me in front of everyone we loved and made a covenant about what we were to each other and what we would always choose. Connor had done all of those things. And Connor had heard something terrifying and dangerous and decided to manage it quietly on his own in a way that protected everyone's feelings and nobody's safety. That is the part flickering me. That is the part I bring to therapy every week and put on the table and examine from every angle, trying to figure out what it means for who we are to each other. Connor is a good man. I genuinely believe that. He is a good father, a patient husband, a person whose instinct is always toward kindness and de-escalation. But that instinct failed us at the moment it mattered most. He chose comfort over honesty. He chose everyone's feelings over our daughter's safety. And I am working on forgiving him for that. Some days I think I have. Some days I wake up at 2 a.m. with Lily's monitor in my hand, and I feel it all over again. Fresh and sharp, and I have to breathe through it until it passes. We are still together. I know some of you are thinking, I should have left. That a husband who that secret should not get to stay. And I understand that response. I do not think it is right. What I think's that every relationship is its own country, with its own laws and geography and history. And the decision to stay, Ogo is made inside that country by the people who live in it, and nobody else. I chose to stay. I chose to stay because of Lily, yes, but also because I believe that Connor is trying, genuinely trying, to understand what he did and why and how to be different. I am watching him closely. I am not giving him the benefit of the doubt for free anymore. He earns it now, every day, in the ordinary choices he makes. Dana and I talk occasionally, not often. We are not close in the way we were. I do not know if we ever will be again. But she is getting better. She left the city, moved to a small town about 2 hours away. Got a job at a plant nursery she says she loves, because plants do not require you to be anything other than attentive and consistent. She is in therapy still. She has started dating someone. A woman she met in her therapy group social circle, which surprised me a little and then stopped surprising me, because Dana has always been full of things she had not yet discovered about herself. Her name is Priya. Dana says she makes her feel calm in a way she has never felt before. Dana has not asked to see Lily. She has not tried to position back into our lives in that way. I think she understands, without my having to explain it, that that door is not open. Maybe one day it will be. Maybe one day to have some kind of relationship with her aunt on terms that I can control and trust. But not now. Not last month. Lily pulled herself up to standing for the first time. She was holding onto the edge of the coffee table, and she went from sitting to standing in one wobbly, triumphant moment, and she looked at me with this expression of pure astonished joy, like she could not believe what her own body had just done. And I started crying, which I do embarrassingly often now. Connor came over and put his arms around me from behind, and we both just watched her standing there. This small, perfect, miraculous person who has no idea what she has already survived. I took a video. I sent it to my mother, to my friends, to Jessica, who is Lily's godmother, has been my anchor through all of this. I did not send it to Dana. I thought about it. I held my phone for a minute and thought about it. And then I decided that today was not the day. Today was just for us. Today was just for the three of us in the living room, watching our daughter discover that she can stand. There will be more days on. There will be days where the right choice is harder to make and the right person to send things to is less clear. I know that. I am not under the illusion that everything is resolved or finished or neatly explained. It is not. Life does not do that. Life gives you a story with jagged edges and loose threads and moments that do not fit cleanly into a narrow version of the narrative you had planned for yourself. But Lily is standing. She is standing and she is looking at me like I am the whole world, which is exactly how I look at her. And somewhere in that exchange, in that specific and unrepeatable moment, I find the thing that makes all of it worth continuing through. I check the locks every night. I sleep lighter than I used to. I hold her a little longer than is palpably necessary every single morning when I take her out of her crib. I do not think I will ever fully stop. And honestly, I think that is okay.